Are you arguing that those organizations are single-handedly going to bring millions of people in the streets? We're talking 2,500 different plans and events for protests. I mean, is that the argument here? And the second part of the argument, my question to you is, are you arguing that if groups are funding protests that they shouldn't be allowed to happen?
On her CNN program, Abby Phillip took on two hardline MAGA figures, Lance Troyer and Scott Jennings, as they clashed over the No Kings protests. In this segment, we'll explore a few moments from Abby Phillip's show, where she and her panel challenged Scott Jennings and Lance Troyer in a passionate debate about the No Kings movement. Let's break it down together.
Depending on who you ask, it is the eve of freedom or the eve of terror. Just hours from now, thousands upon thousands will gather in the streets for the nationwide No Kings protests. Organizers say that they're speaking out against Donald Trump and his abuse of power. Republicans are framing it quite differently.
We're going to bring together the Marxists, the socialists, the Antifa advocates, the anarchists, and the pro-Hamas wing of the far-left Democrat Party. That is the modern Democratic Party. That's where they've gone. And the Hate America rally is the common theme among all those groups.
Now, these protests come at an interesting time. The government is still shut down, 3 weeks now. Both sides aren't even talking, and now top Democrats are going after Caroline Leavitt for some extreme accusations that she leveled against the party's base.
The Democrat Party's main constituency are made up of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals. That is who the Democrat Party is catering to. They don't stand for anything except for catering to their far-left base, which, as I said, includes anti-Semites, includes Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, and violent criminals who they want to let off freely to roam in American streets.
Caroline Leavitt is a complete and total disgrace. She continues to embarrass herself. It gets worse every time she opens her mouth. She's lying about something. And of course she's lying about the patriotic Americans who are going to exercise their First Amendment rights to petition the government and express themselves and gather in a peaceful assembly.
Now, Ashley, I don't know why Republicans are so exercised about this protest tomorrow compared to the last time that it was happening. But could it be the sense that there is more momentum this time around than there was the last time? I mean, what's your sense of how much energy there is and how many people we might see tomorrow?
I think there's going to be a million of Americans and people protesting tomorrow to protect our democracy. I think that the reason why Republicans are paying attention now is because the last time the No Kings protest took place, it was on Donald Trump's birthday, and he thought millions of people were going to show up for that, and they didn't, and instead they showed up for protests that day. And so now he's like, maybe I'm not as popular as I think. But for Republicans, what I would argue is that you should want millions of people to go out into the streets. You should want millions of people to be able to peacefully protest, because that is the perfect counterpoint you can say to me when I say I think our democracy is under attack with authoritarian regimes. What you shouldn't do is call us Marxists or socialists, or you can be whatever you want in America. That's the beauty of a democracy. And I swear, I really do. I thought a couple weeks ago we said we were going to take the temperature down. Protesting peacefully in the street is taking the temperature down. Calling people Hamas sympathizers, socialists, all the other terrible things they've said, that is not what that does.
Yeah, whatever happened to that, Lance?
Who are the sponsors
the idea,
of this?
whatever happened to the fact that literally just a few weeks ago, the idea was, let's take the temperature down. Let's not call each other these things that make this seem like some kind of existential struggle. What happened to that?
Who are the sponsors of this event tomorrow? Let's say Indivisible, the leading defund the police organization in this country. Jewish Voice.
Indivisible is not the leading defund the police. That is like
100%
factually
are.
incorrect.
They were for years to defund the police.
No, they weren't. That's
Jewish
wrong.
Voice
Check
for
your
Peace
source.
is a Hamas sympathetic group. They pal around with Students for Justice for Palestine, another Hamas funded organization.
They're not the lead
These are the organizations. George Soros funded organizations. They're the most radical left-wing groups that are sponsoring.
Are you arguing that those organizations are single-handedly going to bring millions of people in the streets? We're talking 2,500 different plans and events for protests. I mean, is that the argument here? And the second part of the argument, my question to you is, are you arguing that if groups are funding protests that they shouldn't be allowed to happen?
Anybody can go protest. No, absolutely not. Anybody can go protest what they want. But you played clips of members of Congress talking about this event. I think it is worth noting who is sponsoring this event. Defund the police type people, Hamas sympathizers. That's what these groups stand for.
And not to mention the Communist Party it's on the poster here in New York City.
Thank you.
I mean, you've got boomer cranks. They've been protesting every day. Cranky commies, Antifa people. I mean, what they're saying is true. A lot of the people with these sympathies are going to be at these events. I'm sure there'll be some peaceful protesters there. I hope there's no violence. But given what we've seen in cities around America, it is highly likely we're going to see violent elements.
This CNN segment aired on Friday night, just before the No Kings rally, and I'm recording this on Sunday, the day after it took place. As usual, Scott Jennings went on Abby Phillip's show, repeating his familiar claims that these protesters are always violent. Maybe a few are peaceful, he says, but not most. I know plenty of people from all over the country who attended these rallies, and if you're watching this or listening to me, chances are you either went yourself or know someone who did. Everyone I know who showed up is just an ordinary person, not paid off by Hamas, George Soros, or anyone else. I even talked to a MAGA acquaintance I grew up with, and when I mentioned people heading to the rally, his first reaction was, "Who's paying them?" I told him, "Nobody's paying them. It's ridiculous." But that's always their narrative. I think earlier I mistakenly called him Lance Troyer. It's actually Lance Trover, and along with Scott Jennings, they both keep pushing the same idea. Sure, people have the right to protest, but these ones are funded by some secret group. The truth is, they don't care about the right to protest. They just don't want anyone challenging their so-called God King. Trover and Jennings don't believe in peaceful protest or in people standing up for what they believe in or against what they don't. But even if, hypothetically, every single protester were a communist or funded by George Soros, that's not illegal. This is the United States. People have the right to protest, no matter who they are or what they believe. Jennings and others like him would still oppose it, even if it were completely organic with zero organizational backing. It's the same tired narrative we hear from people like Mike Johnson and Caroline Leavitt, that everyone in the Democratic Party is tied to Hamas or some radical movement. Every Democrat I know worries about things like Social Security, retirement, healthcare, and Medicare, not extremism. Seriously, think about it. Do you or anyone you know who's a Democrat seem like they're working for Hamas or being paid off? The whole idea that these rallies are secretly funded by Hamas is absurd. Do they even have that kind of money to bankroll massive protests across the U.S.? Highly doubtful. But as I've said many times before, Scott Jennings is nothing more than a propagandist, and all of this is pure political theater. Thankfully, most people in the country can see right through it.
Comments about the base of the party. I've voted in every Democratic primary since I was old enough to vote. I'm considered the base of the party. I was a union member. I grew up in a trailer house in East Texas. I went home last weekend, and I took my wife home to East Texas, and I went to a Baptist church where I was saved and baptized. I'm the base of the party. I went to a high school football game where I was an all-state football player. I'm the base of the party. And then I went by the factory that had been shut down because my job was moved overseas. I'm the base of the Democratic Party, not these other folks.
Andy Kim, the senator, compared Speaker Johnson's comments about these protests to what was said about the March on Washington of 1963 by George Wallace. He said segregationist George Wallace said about the March on Washington, "I do think the march under the leadership of men who are in the Communist Party and have been is not good for the country. Citizens being used by communists to disrupt and destroy internal peace." That's the comparison that he's making.
Well, look, I mean, if Democrats want to embrace having the Communist Party here in New York City sponsor this rally, be my guest, respectfully, and I hear what you're saying, but where is the energy in the Democratic Party? You see energy around protecting illegal populations. You see it every day. Energy around criminals, violent criminals. I mean, Democratic officials all over this country have worked very hard to let violent criminals out on the streets. Where is the lie?
Yeah. What Scott Jennings keeps saying is absolute nonsense. I'm honestly sick of hearing this tired claim that Democrats are somehow soft on crime and want to release violent offenders. Who exactly is asking for violent criminals to be set free? I regularly talk to Democrats, progressives, and people on the left, and not one of them has ever said, "You know what we need? More violent criminals roaming the streets." Everyone I speak with agrees that if someone is a criminal, whether they're undocumented or not, they should be deported. But the truth is, Most of the people being detained by ICE aren't dangerous criminals at all. The United States already imprisons more people than any other country on Earth, yet guys like Scott Jennings still push this ridiculous narrative. Do they really believe that Democrats actually want criminals back on the streets? It's absurd.
Being said by Caroline Leavitt, this is where the energy is on the left.
The energy,
violent, illegal aliens, violent criminals, that's the energy. That's what you see.
The energy is behind protecting people's rights. It's behind not having citizens citizens, Americans.
What about illegal aliens being rounded up by ICE?
Many Democrats have said we got the immigration issue wrong and we need to fix it. Perhaps maybe in Congress, but we know that won't happen because they aren't even working right now. But people are protesting Americans being zip-tied, being detained without having their rights protected. I'm not saying that is not that is not the Democratic Party saying that let all illegal people or criminals run free. That is not what the Democratic Party is saying.
Those are the policies? Those are your...
No, they are not.
I mean, you have prosecutors and judges all over this country that have let violent criminal after violent criminal out on the streets. And then what do? They commit other violent crimes in city after city after city.
What does that have to do with people exercising their rights to protest? I really want to understand. I mean, there are going to be millions of people probably out on the streets all over the country. And many of those people are, your neighbors, perhaps some of your friends. They're regular Americans that have constitutional rights, that have voting rights like everybody else. Why is it that there is this idea that guilt by association should be applied to them when they just want to go out and protest against a political administration that they disagree with?
I have no problem with people protesting peacefully. They have every right to do that. I do think it's legitimate.
Why demonize them?
Because I think it's a legitimate political debate about what they're protesting for.
I mean, look, listen, if every time, and this does happen on the right, on the left to some extent. Conservatives get mad when Democrats say, oh, you guys are palling around with white supremacists and racists and so on and so forth. Charlottesville, a great example.
Or the group chat.
Yeah, the group chat.
This week.
January 6th, all of that. Everybody painted with the same brush, and you all were opposed and upset about that. Why are you applying then that same thing in this situation?
Again, if they want to protest peacefully, that's perfectly fine. It is perfectly legitimate political debate for Republicans to say, what exactly are they protesting? They are mad that Donald Trump is enforcing federal immigration law. They are mad that he is lawfully exercising the powers of the presidency. And they are fighting for policies that Republicans fundamentally believe are bad for the country.
I do think they disagree with all of the things that
it's a legit debate.
They disagree. You characterize those things as lawful, and they disagree, and they're expressing their disagreement.
I think Abby Phillip is fantastic. I really enjoy her show and believe she does an excellent job. Still, I wish she and the other moderate voices on her panel would directly call out Scott Jennings by saying, Scott, you just don't believe in people's right to protest. Because when he claims, oh sure, they have the right to protest, he's being dishonest. That's always followed by excuses, calling protesters communists, Marxists, Soros-funded radicals, or terrorists. Jennings constantly talks about lawful things Donald Trump is doing, but we've never seen an administration as corrupt or law-breaking as his. People seem to have forgotten about many of those illegal actions. And during the No Kings rally, no one was out there promoting crime or chaos. Jennings tried to suggest that maybe it wouldn't be peaceful, but what proof is there? The NYPD estimated around 100,000 attendees with almost no arrests. Realistically, even at a sporting event that size, someone would get drunk or start a fight. Yet this massive rally remained overwhelmingly peaceful both across the country and around the world. That alone proves how false his propaganda is. These protesters weren't demanding that criminals be freed. They were standing up for justice, fairness, and democracy. And when people talk about the energy of the Democratic Party being radical or tied to Hamas, it's just absurd. The real energy is in leaders like Bernie Sanders and AOC, who recently held a town hall on healthcare. That's what people actually care about. But Jennings and his MAGA allies, like Lance Trover, oppose anything that benefits ordinary Americans. Their loyalty lies only with billionaires, not the working class. They keep spewing lies, calling peaceful protesters terrorists, and it's exhausting. At some point, we need to bring this country's focus back to real issues. Affordable health care, retirement security, education without crushing debt, and the ability for young and old alike to buy a home. People out there care deeply about their kids and grandkids and the future they'll inherit in a system that increasingly caters only to the rich. Unlike someone like Scott Jennings, many of these so-called weird boomers he mocks actually have empathy. So, what about you? Do you agree with Abby Phillip's take, or are you siding with MAGA and Scott Jennings? Honestly, I can't understand how anyone still buys into that nonsense, yet somehow 30 to 40% of the country still does. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.